Hey there, universe. So I just want to, I was just mulling over all of the things that I'm digesting right now. Also, it's been a few days because I've really been meditating and pondering on my problem of practice that I'm working on here in my program at Hopkins. And all of the material has caused me to just really do a lot of thinking. And so that's why I've taken time to really process that. And like I said in the beginning, I'm really only posting videos as much as I have energy to do. Okay, so first things first. So this will be like a two-part reflection. The first part is understanding better frameworks, theories, and models, and then the second part is my reflections on my meditation of what I'm learning and what I'm experiencing with my problem of practice, which centers around morale at my institution. Okay, so frameworks. I had a really hard time conceptualizing this because there are so many stinking words that are the same and cross over inside of this language. So if you are in the research world, like just give me an amen, hallelujah. You can just leave it in the comments below. If you are thinking about getting into it, just be ready to like Google the crap out of everything, get yourself a dictionary, and just be ready to like say, I have no idea what this means, and just really like chew on it really hard until you understand it. So this is what I came away with. I was having a hard time understanding these two different definitions: theoretical frameworks and conceptual frameworks. Okay, there's a third one called practical frameworks, but we're not going to talk about that because it kind of falls out inside of like research and all those things, at least in what I've been asked to focus on. So I'm going to give you the very complicated definitions first, and you might like totally get it, that's awesome, and then I'm going to give you what I see it as. So in the reading and in the videos that were provided, a theoretical framework is described as guiding the research activities by its reliance on a formal theory. So for me, theories that I'm familiar with my counseling background are like Erickson's ages and stages. I know that crosses over in education as well, but that's where I go to first in my brain. And then conceptual framework is, so Eisenhardt, who wrote an article in 91, said that it's like the skeletal structure of justification rather than a skeletal structure of explanation, right? It's like it justifies your work. Okay, so I was Googling this and I was reading through and trying to find just a better, simple definition, one that you could explain. So I have my small children at home. My oldest is 8. Honestly, I try to explain these things to them because I'm like, why not? Like, why not teach my children about research methods and theories and all those things? Yes, I'm that geeky. Okay, so I was like, I need a childlike explanation here because I'm just having the hardest time understanding this. So this is what I came up with, and you tell me how you think about this, especially if you're in the research world, and if this makes sense to you. So to me, a theoretical framework is the what. It's, someone had described it as like the closet, but I think of it as like the house. It's the whole house structure, right? It's the architecture of that building. And then conceptual framework is the how. And to me, so I come from a counseling art background. In the past I did a lot of theater and I paint and I do poetry still. So for me, the theoretical framework is what you're building. It's like, it's the house, it's the architecture, right? Are you going to do are you going to do mid-century modern? Are you going to do more of like a post-revolutionary, what do they call that? Colonial? Like, are you going to do like post-colonial type? Are you going to do a modern look? Are you going to do like country chic? Okay, that is like your theory. I'm totally geeking out right now because this is like, this is me getting it, okay? And then the conceptual framework for me is like the plan for how you plan to decorate it. Are you going to work in pastels? Are you going to work in bright, bold jewel tones? So if you are wondering, theoretical versus conceptual, what I found to help me kind of understand this was just a little thing that was like, so it said here that conceptual frameworks, you visualize how to plan and conduct research to write your thesis, right? So you visualize how you're going to plan and do it, so you better do it at the very beginning. That was the note. I was like, oh my Lanta, it's all about the decorations. It's how you're going to decorate that house. Your framework, your theoretical framework, is the school of decoration that you come from. Oh my Lanta, we finally made it. Okay, a few final thoughts on Um, a few final thoughts on what I've been mulling over and how my problem of practice has been really hitting me. So in my life, I'm trying to think of how to process this and say this out loud. So equity and social justice is a really huge part of my life. Gender identity, orientation, also socioeconomics, and ethnic background. And just if you're like, why, how, what ethnic background? So believe it or not, I come from Mexican American heritage. It's a huge part of my life. I don't look like it, but it is a huge part of my life. Anyway, so that's where I'm coming at with this idea of morale, because I have seen a lot of inequity, and in my personal, like, kind of chip on my shoulder um, purview, my bias, I have felt like morale is linked to socioeconomics, and that those at the top, they're not seeing us at the bottom. And I've been really kind of like randy about it. Like I've been like, my dander's been up and I've not been real happy about it. And going through these last few days in this last week through models and methods, and as the research instrument, I'm the one doing the research, I'm the research instrument, that as that individual and having to recognize my bias, and I was like, whoa, I've got to slow down here. And some questions that like suddenly popped up as I was thinking through this. I was thinking, holy cow, I'm assuming that the people on the top, so all of our administrators, that they have super high morale because they have really high paychecks. Like I'm assuming that. And that's my chip on my shoulder. And yes, there are disparities in equity. Yes, there's like this weird social class that I hope I can get totally into and I can research and better understand. But I'm not convinced anymore that that as much has to do with morale as our own resiliency, our own ability to, our own grit, our own optimism. And so then my question becomes, like, these were the questions that started coming out of my research today. And I consider it research because everything that I'm reading, I'm like, it all goes in. I'm not sure that it's a full-on like grounded theory, talking about theories. I don't think it's full-on grounded. And if you're watching this as entertainment and less about like understanding theories or things like that, go look up grounded theory. Grounded theory. So it's not so much that, but I believe everything goes into influences. So it's my research. Anyways, that very long explanation of that. So here are some of the questions that have been popping out. Like, do leadership opportunity, so I read this article, I read this article today about teacher leadership, and I was like, holy cow, I am wondering if my work needs to be a program review of access to leadership and being able to have your voice heard at our university, and does that affect morale? So when I say leadership, I'm thinking about this idea of teacher leadership, and for me there's this huge crossover, and if I'm not articulating it, just let me know, ask more questions, hey, we'll talk about it. So do leadership opportunities in the university increase morale, like when individuals have opportunities to speak into the process and things like that? Where do leadership opportunities peak at the university? So like, where does it like, so for me, who I'm not an administrator, right? Like, where does my opportunity to affect the system, where does it dissipate and where does it disappear? Like, when does it stop, right? When does it get to the point where it's administration and I can't affect that anymore? And so I want to know, is that also related to morale? And then does a lack of defined roles lead to morale? My hypothesis is that a lack of a defined role absolutely leads to low morale. I've experienced that in other positions and organizations I've worked with. Is engagement the way to redress low morale, like as they engage with us? Because my experience in my institution that I work at here in the Northwest is that there are lots of opportunities to engage, but again, I'm wondering, is there a certain level where it like peters out, where it's like, well, I can affect, I can affect this much inside of my box, but it's not actually addressing the things that are outside of that box. Like I can't affect that, and so I'm wondering, is morale a part of that? I questioned, do we even have low morale at my institution? I was wondering, is this really more of an issue of leadership, of community and collaboration, and is it not about morale? So I'm interested to know more about that. Um, I wanted to know, is morale linked to perceptions of leaders in the system? So like if my morale is low, we're gonna have to come to an agreement on what morale is, but if my morale is low, is it linked to my perception of those in administration? And then do we need a program review at the administrative level? That's something I really want to know. Do people who are not administrators, do they ever do a program review of our administration process and cycle and how they interact with the normal folk? Does that happen? Is that a thing? And if it's not, if it is, like I want to know about that, and I want to see if I can do more in that. Anyways, I'm going on and on. Um I think that my bias has really been put in check. I think that I've been on this high horse of equity, and as somebody who has been marginalized, not for my ethnicity. I know I talked about that, but not for my ethnicity. I am perceived as a white male, but for orientation and for um, for other things in my life, I have been marginalized, and I've experienced that. In that place of pain, I think I've been like, whoa, I got to check it, and I got to soften my heart. And that felt really good in one hand. It also felt really weird because if any of you are like Avatar: Last Airbender fans, I felt like I was having like, uh, oh my Lanta, now I'm going to forget his name. Zuko. I feel like I'm having a Zuko moment, like where suddenly all of my passion and all my rage was like aimed at this system, and it now it's not, and so I think I'm feeling a little bit weird about that. So I'm figuring out how to be at peace with that, and how to help my superpower, how to help my like happiness bending come from a different place. Anyways, thanks for being with me. I hope that you're all well, and we'll talk again soon. All right, bye bye.